Hey, you're about to hear a great word from our teaching team. At Freedom House, we're about equipping you to experience Christ's freedom every day. We would love to connect with you.
We stream our live services Sundays at 10:30 and 12:15 Eastern Standard Time. You can join us at freedomhouse.cc/live.
I hope you enjoyed this message.
Well. Good to be back. Y'all take your seats. Go ahead and get comfortable. I know that the men have been here all day. We got a chance to connect this morning, just like Pastor Troy said, but I think the ladies are here in the building tonight. So I want the ladies right now to make some noise. Ladies, say, hey. Now, you know, here's funny. I always like to start with ladies to give men a shot. Okay, this is our opportunity to go ahead and finally win in this competition. We've been here all day. We're riled up. We're feeling full of energy. Gentlemen, make some noise. Say, ho. There we go. For the first time, we went on and pulled out that victory. It's good for y'all to be here. Y'all make some noise for this incredible night. We've been talking the whole day about this idea of uncommon, what it looks like to live an uncommon life. And I had a chance to talk to you earlier about truly saying that, hey, I was made to be wild. And I know some of you are looking at me because you weren't in the room earlier and you're thinking, wait a minute, he told my husband, he told the person that I'm dating right now that he was made wild. And yes, you can look at him and he will look at you and say, girl, I am wild, okay? You can't tame me. Don't try to tame me. I am who I am. I was made that way. And he'll tell you a little bit more what that means later on. And that was this morning. And then I began to think, well, what would I want to say to him at the nighttime? What would I love to share from my heart if I had to give one more shot to talk to you? And that is the fact that every single person in this room already walked in the door uncommon. I know we're talking about this idea that once we place these qualities in our life that will begin to exude this uncommon life that will begin to be so attracted to people beyond these walls. But for the person who might have just walked in this church, the person who might be brand new to this room, who say, hey, this might be my first week and my first time holding my hands up when I worship, the first time me actually sitting down and asking questions and maybe even talking to God. I'll talk to you right now and I say, your life is already uncommon. To the Christian who might be sitting here in the seats and thinking, I'm not sure what I'm called to do, but I'm feeling this pull in my heart and I don't know what to do with it. I look to you the same way and I say, you're already uncommon walking in here. And so my hope is that I can share my story with you. Because it's interesting, as Pastor Troy already said, I work at a church in Atlanta called North Point Community Church. And yes, although I work a lot more on the road nowadays, for many, many years I had a chance to be called a groups director. Now, we have small group leaders for our high school students, and I did that for about 5 years. And then I was getting ready to loop back around, but they asked me to go on staff. And essentially, I went from being a small group leader with my students, with my 25 guys, to saying now I'm about to be the person who actually scouts, trains, and develops and continues to pour into our small group leaders. And so about 4 years I did that before becoming a high school pastor and moving on beyond there. But for those 4 years that I got a chance to sit with men, I would always sit down with them as they're thinking about serving and they're thinking about maybe joining our high school program and leading their few. And I would say, hey, can you share your story with me? And sure enough, every single time they'd open up and they begin to kind of share their story, typically men like to start around middle school or high school. They just jump right to that point. They kind of walk you through their journey. And it was this beautiful process of me learning what it was about their story that made them so convicted or so compelled to want to now work with students today. And so sure enough, my pastor got a chance to say, hey, I want to take you out to lunch. And so sure enough, he chooses Subway, which is an odd choice, but no judgment. So here we are, we go to Subway. I said, okay, we're still doing this. We're still eating at Subway. People are still coming here. And so we got our subs and we sat down at the booth and he said, hey, Joseph, can you share your story with me? I said, no, don't do that. I already do that. I know that trick. Don't do that. He said, no, I want you to share your story with me. And I said, okay. And I started opening up. And, it's lunchtime. You're not trying to get deep. You only got about 30, 40 minutes. So I'm kind of giving him the quick cliff notes. He starts asking the prodding questions. You know the questions they ask, and you're like, oh, well, for me to answer that, I got to go deeper. He's like, yeah, I want to do that. We have extra time. And that's when you know, okay, it's happening. And so I began answering, and emotions began welling up when I started talking about my childhood. And sure enough, the more and more I start talking, the more questions he begins asking me, the more and more I begin overcome by these emotions. And all of a sudden, I start crying. He starts crying. We're both crying over our meatball subs, and everybody's looking at us and saying, what are those people? What are those two people doing? And we're like, we're Christians, and Christians are transparent. And at the end of this emotional Subway lunch with meatball subs now soggy, he looks at me and he says, why have you never shared your story before? And I say, honestly, I just didn't want everybody in my business. I was raised that way. Don't air out your dirty laundry, bruh. And he said, I don't understand. Joe, you need to figure out a way to be more comfortable saying who you are. And I went to bed that night, and I'm laying in bed, and that's oftentimes when I ponder. And I began to think this thought of what he was saying, and I said, maybe what he's saying is true. And then I had this moment where I thought this thought, and I simply thought, a story that's untold never has a chance to help anyone. And I thought, if you never are courageous enough to say, this is who I am, this is who I was, but God is still able to use somebody like me, that yes, I am based on a true story the same way you are based on a true story, then what kind of person could you say you are? How courageous could you really say you are? And so my hope tonight is that you'll receive me in my story. Maybe you'll listen to certain parts and you'll say, I relate to these. Maybe you'll say, I can relate to that circumstance. I understand his mindset. Or maybe you'll say, I can't even relate to these moments. But my hope is that you'll find something in here that you can say, now that is something I can identify with. As I said this morning, I was born in a place called Akron, Ohio. O-H. I love that. A lot of Ohio people in the room. And I was born in a place called Akron, Ohio. There's not much to say about it. It used to be considered the rubber capital of the world, but that was before I was born. By the time I hit the scene, all the factories were shut down. All we had left was LeBron James. Tonight, we're just a few hours out from the big game, game 3. We're down 2. It's okay. God's about to make a way. Sure enough, LeBron went to Miami. He messed up in his walk, but he came back and he got back on his path, just like a lot of us. He got right back on it, and now God is beginning to do a great work through him. And so sure enough, all we had was LeBron James, and then there was me, and I can't really say I did too much. I mean, I ended up moving to Atlanta, and God continued to use me. But I was raised to a single mom. My mom and my dad divorced when we were just babies, and he sure enough remarried and began having children of his own. And right around the 2nd grade was when my dad kind of faded away. He wasn't on the scene quite as much. I mean, he was a good guy, but he just seemed to not have time for us anymore. And I remember it was myself. Now my mom had 3 incredibly handsome young men. John, my older brother, myself, Joseph, and Justin. He was my twin. And so sure enough, we're growing up, and right now at this time, we're about middle school. And I remember us getting so anxious and upset that our dad wasn't there anymore. We would say, what kind of man isn't here to take care of his son? What kind of man isn't here to pick us up and take us to Toys R Us? What kind of man isn't here to take us to the movie? We would get so frustrated, and my mom would walk in the room, and she would look at us, and she said, listen, I understand that you don't know why your dad made the decisions he made, and I don't understand either, but it's your responsibility to make sure you respect him. That's your dad. Don't you let me catch you talking to your father like that again. You don't. Yes, ma'am. She's that kind of woman. The first woman of God I ever saw, and one of the greatest standards I still look at to this day. The person I still reach out to when I want to hear truly a true, genuine voice of somebody that has a real relationship with Jesus Christ. Now, I was born in a place, a side of town that people oftentimes like to refer to as the ghetto. And the thing about the ghetto is that it's often chock full of many distractions that might get in your way of your truest potential. And so, sure enough, we were moving into a brand new school. It was around 2nd grade, and so it was a place called Schumacher Elementary. And so I was very excited about Schumacher. It was a brand new school. It had brand new lockers. So my mom said she was going to take a tour of Schumacher. And I remember her going, and I was just waiting for her to come back. She finally walks back, and I said, Mom, did you see the orange lockers? It has orange lockers. Schumacher has orange lockers. And she said, I saw the orange lockers. You're not going to Schumacher. And I said, what? She said, you're not going to Schumacher because it's not a great school for any of you. She looked at all 3 of us, and she said, I'm going to save up and take you to the school that I want to send you to. I said, well, how long is that going to take? She said, probably a year. It's going to require us making some big budget cuts. So for the next year, we simply ate honey butter sandwiches for lunch. Every day she would pack it for us. It was just a piece of bread with margarine, and then she squirt honey on it. That's why to this day, if you take me to Cracker Barrel and they give me the biscuits and honey, I say, get the honey and biscuits out my face. I will never go back, ever. Biscuits and honey butter sandwiches every single day, and then she make big pots of spaghetti each night, and that's why we had spaghetti and biscuits and honey butter sandwiches every single day until a year later she finally had saved up enough money. And I still remember the day she pulled up to our brand new house out of this U-Haul truck, and she jumps out of the U-Haul, and she's running in and out of the new house, and she says, this is it, this is our new house. And she was so excited, and I remember all 3 of us standing there with our little bags, and we didn't know what to feel. I mean, she was so excited, but she had ripped us away from every single thing that we knew, and we wanted to be excited, but we just didn't know how to feel in this moment. And maybe if she really knew what was going to be coming, I wonder if she would have been as excited either. Because I can still tell you my first day of 3rd grade. I can even tell you what I was wearing. I was wearing a turquoise Michael Jordan t-shirt. It said Air Joseph on the back. I thought the shirt was so cool people would want to be my friend. And I walked into my brand new school and I remember thinking, wow, everything smells and looks so different. I mean, everything I saw was so foreign to what I was used to. And I began walking to my room, and I remember Justin, my twin brother, was walking right beside me, and I thought, you know what, everything's gonna be okay because as long as I got my twin brother, everything's gonna be A-okay. My mom had known that, so she went ahead to the administration and said, I wanna make sure you separate Joseph and Justin from all their classes, never put them in one class together so they can make their own friends. That's my mom, that's how she is, that's how she will always be. We get to the intersection of the hallway, I turn right, and Justin turns left. I said, Justin, our class is this way. He says, no, our class is this way. I said, not mine. And there he goes off in the sunset. And I walk to my class, and I stand right there at the door by myself. I remember looking in, and the whole room kind of looked at me. And I immediately walked in, and I walked to the back, and I'm trying to find my name, Sojourner, 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 Sojourner. I finally find it, and I sit down in the back seat, and I just look down. You know that feeling where you just look down and you hope that you could disappear? And I finally look up, and everyone's kind of peering at me. And it was the first time in my life, in 3rd grade, I remember feeling different. We were the first blacks to integrate Monroe Elementary. Now, what's crazy is people say, you were born during civil rights. I said, does it look like I was born during civil rights? No. My mom just so happened to find the only school where there was no blacks before us. That's my mom. She'll always be that way. She'll never change. Now, I had never seen that many white people in all my 8 years of existence. It was like walking into a REI. I said, what in the world is happening? Where am I right now? I remember saying everything here is just so foreign. I mean, the music they're talking about, the TV shows they're referencing, everything about their jokes, everything was just so different. I said, maybe they don't notice that I'm different. Maybe everything isn't as different as I'm imagining. But sure enough, in those moments, they will look at me and they will say, no, you are a little bit different. I mean, you kind of walk with the strut and you're like, what's up, everybody? I'm Sojo. And what started as innocent jokes in the 3rd grade became a little bit more sharp in the 4th grade. And this bold, excited, extroverted 3rd grader began to close up and become much more defensive by the time he hit the 4th grade. People will quickly size me up. My brother was about double my size. My twin brother was about double my size. So sure enough, when Justin would walk away, they would always pick on me. I was a really, really skinny kid with a big head. I had to grow into this thing. And so they'd always say, your big brother isn't here anymore. And I was older than Justin by 15 minutes. So the worst thing you could say to me was my big brother. I said, he's not my big brother. I'm older than he is. And I don't need any of you guys talking about I'm not a man. I'm a grown man. I'm in the 4th grade. And if any of you guys want to test me right now. I mean, I was such an angry, mad kid. I don't know why I was so mad, but all those comments about my size just made me so furious. I was so ready to always defend my stance, defend my manhood. But my mom told me that I couldn't because my mom said it had saved all of her money to get us to this school and that I would make a promise to her to never get in a fight. And I kept that promise to my mom all the way to the 5th grade. It was a science project. We've been working on it for about a few weeks. And she said, tomorrow you're going to be presenting your projects to the class. Now, by this time, I'm not speaking to anybody and nobody is speaking to me. And I remember thinking, there's no way I can stand in front of this class and give a presentation. I just could not do it. And I remember I waited till everybody walked down. I walked right up to the teacher. I said, hey, listen, I don't know if you know who I am. My name is Joseph Sojourner. And I don't know about you, but I can never stand in front of this class and give a presentation. If there's any way possible, could you just grade my test, grade my paper and give it back to me? Give me that A, and I know I got it. But listen, if you could just make sure I don't have to stand in front of this class and present. She cut me off and she said, Joseph, I read your report, and I can tell you put a lot of work into it. And I think this class deserves to hear all the work you put into your report. I said, well, I did put a lot of work into it. That is true. And I was convinced to present, just like that. Next day, introverts, you know that feeling when it's presentation day. I walk into the school and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's time. You know, it's like 5th period, but it's like 3rd period. You're thinking, Ready coming into 5th period, I remember going to the restroom. The last stall was my prayer stall. I don't know why, but it was my prayer stall. So I went in and I shut the door. I said, God, it's about to happen. It's about to go down. I said, God, I don't know how this presentation is going to go. I don't know how it's going to feel. But I pray that they could just love it. I pray that they don't just love it, God. I pray they give me a standing ovation and maybe even throw roses. I pray that I not only get an A, but it's the greatest A she's ever given. I pray that everything goes well and everything truly is greater than I ever could imagine. Amen. And I walked out of the bathroom and I can still tell you what the presentation was like today. Standing in front of there with my cardboard cut out of Joe's Rib Shack. It was a menu. That was the best name I could think of in 5th grade. And I was talking about my items. Sure enough, a hand shoots up in the back. There is nothing worse when you're giving your presentation than a question. But I continue to give all the toppings and pizzas. I'm thinking, here's my pizzas, here's fried pickles. They were brand new back then. People didn't fry pickles. I just had them one time. I said fried pickles and dip. Thought I was doing it. Thought I was doing something special. A hand shoots up again. Question! Jerry was his name. Jerry, there's always one, right? Jerry. I tried to ignore him. Didn't want to pay attention to him. Some of y'all do it at work every day. I continue going back about my pizzas, as you can see here. Question! I said, okay, all right. I said, yes, Jerry, what's your question? And he says a question that cut deep. He said, the toppings on your pizza, do they include chitlins and watermelon? And it wasn't the comment that hurt so bad. It was the fact that the entire room erupted laughing. And I remember I threw my cardboard cutout down and I jumped over the desk and I grabbed him by the shirt and I swung, but sure enough, he ducked and he fell on the ground and I jumped on the ground. And just as I'm getting ready to punch him, the teacher's pulling me off him, which makes me even more furious because now all I can see is red and I gotta get back to Jerry to get my manhood back. And I jump back on top of him and this time 2 boys pull me off and I'm swinging and I'm screaming until finally they get me in the hallway and they push me on the lockers and I'm punching the lockers till I turn around and I lock eyes with my teacher and I say, I told you that this would happen. Why did you make me do it? And then I slid down on the ground. And I just started to cry. And in that moment, she leans down and she looks at me in the eye. And she says, Joseph, how much longer are you going to let their words control you? I was so furious. Couldn't breathe. And she says it again. How much longer are you going to let their words control you? And then she stands up and just walks back in the room and leaves me in the hallway to sort out what might have been one of the most pivotal statements a person could have made in this young boy's life. And her words echoed in my head through the absolutely brutal middle school years, where the verbal abuse only turned physical, where every single day people would say things to me and I'm thinking that can't be true, that's not real. Every single morning before I go out, my mom would say the same thing. Hey, you're Christian first, Sojourner second. Repeat it back and I say, I'm Christian first, Sojourner second. She'd say it like you mean it. I'm Christian first, Sojourner second. And then sure enough, I'd walk down the hallways and there were moments when people were saying things to me and all I was saying is I'm Christian first, Sojourner second. I'm Christian first, Sojourner second. I'm Christian first, Sojourner second. I am not the names that they're calling me, but truthfully, I didn't know what I was anymore. I'd look in the mirror and I didn't know what made me so toxic. I didn't know why no one wanted to be my friend. I didn't know why no one would choose me. By the time I got to the 9th grade, it was so terrible. My first day of basic metals class, the teacher calls me to the front. He says, hey, Joseph, I need you to come up here. We know about the bullying that happens to you, and there's a lot of sharp equipment in this room, so for your own protection, we need you to do all your projects outside for this semester. That's for your own protection. I said, absolutely. The plan worked perfectly for about 2 weeks until 2 kids got sick. He had to take them down to the nurse's office, which allowed 4 boys to walk out. And as I was spraying my red box, they kicked it across the yard and beat me that day. And I remember just thinking, I can't catch a break. Right around that time, 9th grade, French class. I didn't do well on the test, and I remember I stayed after. I said, hey, listen, I can't bring home any C's. I'm not permitted to bring any C's, only A's and B's. Is there any way I can get some tutoring? Is there any way I can get some extra credit, whatever it may be, to make sure I can get this grade up because I can't bring this bad grade home to my mom? And the teacher looked at me, and she pulled her glasses down. And she said, how am I supposed to teach you French when you can't even speak English? And I just stood there, and then I said, I'm sorry. And I walked out of her room. And that was the day I quit. I quit caring. I quit fighting. I quit thinking somebody was going to come rescue me. I quit thinking that I was going to get a break. I just quit. And my mom saw that she was losing her boys. And she ran up there because she knew she had to do something in this moment because her boys were changed and they were becoming totally different men than what she planned for. And she sat down with the principal and she said, I don't know what else to tell them. I'm telling them to turn the other cheek and take the high road. But at this point, there's no other options. And he looks at her and kindly says, ma'am, I don't know what you thought would happen when you placed them in this school. There's nothing much more I can do. And my mom came home that night and she went straight to her room. And she always went to her room whenever she didn't want to see us cry. I never saw my mom cry once. She always wanted to be a standard of strength in front of us. Finally, she gathered herself, walked out. John, Joseph, Justin, living room. We file in and we sit down. And I could tell she didn't have her thoughts together, but she was trying to look like she had it together for us. I need to take you out of that school. I said, what? I have to take you out of that school as soon as possible. I said, where are we going to go? She said, I'm not sure yet, but we're going to figure it out. Right around that time, my older brother John says, well, what about Firestone High School? I said, Firestone? It's one of the top schools in the area, super diverse, all the top academics, IB program, as well as sports. I said, Firestone, there's no way we have a shot. It's 45 minutes down the road. Why are you still dreaming? I was so offended by my brother's thoughts. I thought, why are you still dreaming? Why are you still having hope that something good can happen to us? The audacity of you. And my mom said, let's at least fill out some applications. I said, okay, fine. And I filled them out. We mailed them out. And I didn't think anything of it till about 3-4 weeks later. And there was a call left on our answering machine. Yes, answering machine, not voicemail. I'm a little bit older than what people think. She called us in. And she said, listen to this. And she hit play and said, congratulations, John, Joseph, and Justin are accepted to Firestone High School. We can't wait to see you. And I remember standing in a room and thinking, what? Something good just happened to us? That's impossible. My first day of 10th grade, Firestone High School, my new book bag, brand new shirt. I walked in, I thought, everything here is different. 3 steps in, stop. I look, I see whites, blacks, Hispanics chatting, chumming it up in the hallways, horse playing, having a blast. And I'm thinking, nothing like this looks familiar at all. I put my head down and I walk all the way to my first period class. I sit in the second to last seat. I just sit there and I hope that nobody sees me. I put my hands on my desk and I'm like, just disappear. Hopefully that there's no problem in this school. There's a kid sitting beside me. His name is Sean. Tap, tap, tap on my back. Tap, tap, tap. Yes. Hey, man, you got a pencil? I said, this is a test. I ain't got a pencil. Tap, tap, tap. Yes. Come on, man. You don't have a pencil in that big book bag of yours? I said, he's sizing me up. He's trying to test me. I told you I ain't got a pencil. Elevate your voice. Say, don't mess with me. I might be crazy. Bruh, do it again. Tap, tap, tap. Come on, man, I left my pencil at home. I know you got to have a pencil in there, and I did the only thing I knew to do, the only thing my instincts had taught me to do. I jumped up out of my desk. I knocked the books off his desk. I said, I told you I ain't got a pencil. Don't touch me again. And I was kicked out of my first grade class, first day of school, just like that, sent to the principal's office. And I remember she looked at me, and she said, Joseph, I know your story. And I just looked at her. She said, I know your story, and you need to trust us. I said, trust? She said, yes, you need to trust us. I'm not going to suspend you. I'm not even going to give you detention. I'm going to give you another shot tomorrow. But can you promise you're going to at least give us a try? I said, okay, all right. Second day of school, I walk right back to that first period class, walk back to my seat. I was walking by this young lady, and she says, is that the boy that flipped out over the pencil? He's crazy. And I remember thinking, good. At least now they think I'm crazy. Now nobody's gonna mess with me, and nobody's ever about to ask for my pencil again. The thing about being quiet for that long is you learn how to listen really well. You learn not to just listen to what people are saying, but the body language that's speaking a whole another story just below the surface. The choice words that they use that you wonder, why did they say it like that? How? What are they truly trying to say? Techniques I still use to this day when I sit across from people, just learning how to listen really, really well. We're now moving into 11th grade. I'm now 6 years, no friends, no speaking, nobody even knowing my name. My brother is literally about 240 pounds, 6'8". So sure enough, the football and basketball team are trying to draft him. He took all the food in the womb. He didn't leave me with anything. I never had a chance. So they're trying to draft him, and they had sent 2 of the star athletes at his locker, and they were really, really funny guys. And so I come around the corner, and Justin is cracking up with these 2 guys. I remember just stopping, and I thought, I have never in my life laughed in the hallway with anyone. And I went home that night, and I said, God, I want nothing more than to have a couple friends who I can laugh with in the hallway, that I can walk with to lunch and maybe even sit with. Amen. And my lights blinked, and a bearded man in a robe lowered and sat at the edge of my bed. I'm lying, that didn't happen at all. It was the looks of y'all. Y'all are like, I'm done with him. That was the worst story I've ever heard in my life. He just said Jesus came to his room. Yes, Jesus. I woke up the next morning and I heard nothing. Nothing again. And I remember thinking, do you ever hear my prayers? Once again, I get no message, and I said, well, I got to make a difference. I got to make a decision to maybe just do one thing. And I said, what's one thing that I could do today to maybe change my circumstances? And I made the decision simply to smile. I said, I'm going to smile if somebody says my name. I'm going to smile. Wait, nobody knows my name. Okay, I'm going to smile if somebody makes a joke. If somebody says anything funny, I'm just going to smile to hopefully show that I'm not a horrible person and I'm not so toxic. Maybe, just maybe, it'll begin to work. And so every single day I would come in and I would start to smile, and the plan began to work. I mean, it kind of backfired because people began to call me Kool-Aid. They said, what up, Kool-Aid? And I said, wait a minute, that's not a compliment. That's horrible. But by the end of the year, 2 or 3 oddballs decided to be my friend, and that was 2 or 3 more than I ever could ask for. At the end of 11th grade, I remember walking home. Actually, we walked to our aunt's house, and then my mom would pick us up and drive us 45 minutes home. And so as we're walking, we're passing, and I got two of my friends walking beside me, and one of them says, hey, I'm going to run into the gas station here. And I said, okay. I said, I'll wait for you right out here. And he runs in, and he comes back out with 2 greasy napkins. And he hands it to me. He hands one. And I said, what is this? He said, pizza. I said, for what? He said, for you. I said, why? Because I know you like pepperoni pizza. I said, no, but why did you buy it? He said, listen, if you don't want it, give me the pizza back. But it wasn't just pizza. It was the first moment. At the end of 11th grade, I realized I had a friend. The first moment someone ever did something for me in my youth without me standing right beside them. Somebody thought about me when I wasn't standing beside them. And I oftentimes tell people as I travel this beautiful world, and they ask me, what's the best food? What's the best pizzas you've had? I go back to that nasty, greasy gas station pizza that tasted like heaven that day. When I got home that night and I made my little covenant to God, I didn't know how it all worked, but I simply prayed to him. I said, listen, I know these 2 friends are probably going to leave me eventually. They have every right to, because I'm toxic and I don't even know why yet, and I'm sure they'll realize it. But if you let them stay, if you just let them stick around, I promise I will be the best friend that they have ever seen. And to say that God answered that prayer, to say that God showed up in my life right then and there would be an understatement. It was as if my entire life I was covered in clouds, and God began to pull those clouds back and shine light right down on me. And people began to notice me in the hallway going into 12th grade. My first time, people began to talk to me. People started saying, hey, there's this really nice kid. He actually cares about you. He actually will sit there and listen to all your problems. You ought to get to know him. His name is Joseph. He's a brand new student, and I wasn't even new. I've been there for 3 years. Sure enough, for some reason, God was beginning to give me influence, and I didn't understand it, and teachers were beginning to come to me and say, hey, there's something about you that's drawing students to you, and we don't really know who you are. We don't really know where you come from, but we want to know more about you. And sure enough, I decided to say, well, I got to figure out how to start speaking, so I joined theater. And I remember joining theater, and I just had one play. We only had 1 play left in the whole school year before I finally built the courage up to even try out. And I remember everyone was going down like, I want to be on Broadway, I want to be in movies, I want to be on TV. And it got to me, and I said, I want to learn how to speak. And the whole class did, what? And I whispered it again as my teacher looked at me. I said, I'm here because I want to learn how to speak. He just looked at me. And literally he says, okay, I'm going to help you learn how to speak. And sure enough, as we're going on and I'm casting into Romeo and Juliet as Mercutio, and he says, you got to wear tights. And I said, I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry, I'm from the ghetto. I don't do those. He began to teach me what it looked like to get out of my comfort zone. He began to teach me what it looked like to speak. As I walked the halls, I began to notice our theater program didn't quite represent what our school was. I remember I went to him and I said, hey, is there any way we can begin to do multicultural plays when we got so many blacks and Latinos in the school, but it seems like our plays seem to be a little bit biased? I mean, maybe we could begin to do plays that can draw all this school together. He said, listen, I would love that. I think that'd be an incredible idea. The problem is the blacks and the Latinos, they don't come to the productions. I said, okay, if we can get them to come to Romeo and Juliet, that's gonna be a hefty task, but if we can get them to come to Romeo and Juliet, then maybe, just maybe we can begin to transform that. He said, if you can do it, if you can use your voice, then I'll think about it. And I hit the hallways with my brand new 2-month-old voice. And I began telling as many people as I could about this new dream that maybe we can use theater to do something special in this school. And our first day of Romeo and Juliet sold out, second day added, sold out, third day added, sold out. And to this day, Firestone High School uses multicultural plays to continue to connect the whole school off of a 2-month-old voice. And I began to say, God, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know why you all of a sudden are beginning to give me any form of influence, because I was just toxic last year. I joined this program called Black United Students, and I remember sitting there listening to all the issues, the dreams, aspirations, but problems that the school is facing according to their eyes. And I remember at the end of it, I put my hand in the air and I said, hey, listen, this is really, really awesome, but can I ask you a question? They said, yes. I said, why are there no whites in here? And they said, well, because it's Black United Students. I said, that's true. The name will kind of weed the whites right out. I said, but if we have dreams, hopes, and aspirations, and they have dreams, hopes, and aspirations, maybe we should all get in one room together. Maybe we should begin to work together and do something special. Maybe we should stop calling it Black United Students, like the Black office, just call it United Students. Maybe this could be something better for the school. And they said, you're crazy. And I was crazy. And I said, when our elections? They said a month from now. And I hit the halls again with my brand new voice. And I began saying we can do something special if we all work together. And I found this girl, and her name was Laura. And I said, Laura, you have the heart. You know how to listen. You know how to do something special. I think that you should run for president of Black United Students. She said, Joseph, I'd be honored to. I think I want to, but here's the problem. I'm white. I said, that's true. You are white. We're gonna have to climb that hill. It's going to be a mountain, but I think you can do it. I don't even think they'll notice. She said, yeah, they probably will notice. But I think we can do this together. And we hit the halls together. And sure enough, election day came. In a room full of whites, blacks, and Hispanics crowded in, packed wall to wall. And I'm standing against the back wall, too terrified to ever stand anywhere else in the room, because I'm still new to this. I'm still trying to figure out what's happening in my life. And those teachers filed in with that ballot box. And they said, congratulations, the president of Black United Students, or as you all renamed it, United Students, is Laura. And that room erupted. And people began grabbing each other and hugging each other, and I'm literally frozen. And at this point, Laura walks to the front of the room, and then she locks eyes with me, and she walks down that center aisle, and she grabs me, and she holds me, and I can't get a word out because at this point, I'm in literal shock, and she just whispers, we did it, and she's crying, and I couldn't get a word out because I didn't know what we had done. And I always tell people, when you go through most of your childhood with no one, you just dream for people. And it would take me most of my adult life to realize that maybe God placed me on this planet to dream for people. Not too long ago, I got a chance to hang out at my Waffle House in Atlanta. I don't know if you guys got them here. Sure enough, I do my ministry best at a Waffle House now. It's just something about it. Everything aligns perfectly. So I sit down at the counter, and I'm sitting beside a middle-aged woman. She had a very, very long night. So I look at her, I was like, she's a little rough. It's a Waffle House, but let's be real. We all see it. It's common. So I look at her and I think, I'm gonna go ahead and leave that alone. I look back. I gotta be real. I'm being human. This is real, vulnerable right now. We're family. So I look forward and I don't say anything. And I feel this conviction. I said, that's not you. I turned to her, I said, I'm sorry I didn't get your name. And she said, my name is Ann. I said, oh, nice to meet you, Ann. I'm Joe. She said, nice to meet you, Joe. I said, yeah, great to meet you, Ann. And I said, okay, God, I did my part. Just give me my waffle, my all-star. Let me just do. And sure enough, about 10 minutes later, Ann says, Joe, what do you do? I said, okay. I said, Ann, actually, I work with churches. Churches. And for the next 10 minutes, Ann begins giving a rant as to why churches are the worst place in the world. Why churches are full of people that put masks on and act like they're better than everybody else, act like they truly can look down on everyone else, that they can make no mistakes, that churches are full of hypocrites because they're people that are too proud to ever admit that they actually are flawed humans like the rest of us. And I cut her off in the middle of her tangent, and I said, Ann, can I ask you a question? She says, yeah. I said, do you think every church is bad? And she stops. She says, I guess not every church. I said, oh, okay, that's all I wanted to know. She gets a little defensive. She said, listen, I'm not saying I hate church. I love Jesus. I tell my friends all the time, you need Jesus. I said, okay, that's great. And then she said something that rocked my world. She said, and I'm a firm believer that the most called people in the church aren't even the ones that stand on stage. And I had to put my fork down. I said, what did you say? She said, I'm a firm believer that the most called people in the church aren't even the ones who stand on the stage. And I reached over and I grabbed her hand and I said, Ann, we need you at our church. She said, me? No. I said, we need you. She said, why? I said, because we need your story at our doors. Right around then, my favorite waitress, Twy, was coming back and she filled up my cup and she looked at her. She said, girl, go to that boy's church. It's a good church. I said, come on, Twy, double your tip today. Double tip, tag team. We working. Sure enough, I get up and I pay and I start walking back to my car. And Ann follows me out. And she says, I might check out your church. I said, huh? She said, if your church is anything like you, then I might give it a shot. I said, oh, Ann, my church is way better than me. Way better. She smiles. And she said, what time are your services? And I start ranting them off. She said, oh my goodness, it must be a big church. I said, yeah, we're a little bit large. And she said, well, are you preaching? I said, no, just come for the guys preaching. Trust me, he'll take care of you. And she says, okay, I'm going to be there. And she walks back to her car, and I walk to mine. As I'm putting my keys in, she kind of pulls around. She lets her window down, and she says, I don't know what made me tell you all that. I never tell somebody all that about my life. And I said, I know exactly what made you say all that. Because you ran into a church that made you comfortable enough to just be yourself, which in turn let you be confident enough to tell your story. And Ann, that's a beautiful story. What if we were the people that walked out these doors? And for the people that we sit beside at the Waffle houses, at our jobs, our little league games, that we can say, hey, I don't think I caught your name. I'd love to know your story, because something about you is not common. The greatest thing we can say to someone who has no hope, who feels unnoticed, who feels that they have no place, is to remind them you're special. You're based on a true story, and it's a story worth telling, and it's a story that I'm willing to listen to. It's ground zero of ministry. We can give you all the rest of the tools, all the rest of the conversations that you'll have later, but the first conversation you have with somebody who's never met you is, hi, I didn't catch your name, and I would love to know your story. I wish if I could go back to Ann, if I could just get 10 more minutes with her, I would tell her, Ann, trust me, I used to think some of the things you thought. I was the kid that literally went through 8 years of my childhood where nobody knew my name and nobody spoke to me. I used to think that I was too toxic to ever have a voice that matters. And now every single week I get a chance to stand on stages and talk to my peers as well as young generations to come. And I look at them and say, you are at the most greatest, beautiful place you could ever be, in a place where people want to not just know your name, but know who you are. To remind you that in case you forgot, you are a son and a daughter of the Most High, that you are able to do more than you could ever do by yourself, that you are truly fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God, who truly walks ahead of you, who says all that you have done, all that you will do, all that you are going to do will be already determined by me, and I will give you the strength, I will give you the courage, I will give you the wisdom, I will give you no fear, so that you will be able to knock the Goliaths down in your life. You are back home. You have found your home, and you can be known here, fully known, fully alive, fully free. And it starts with you just opening up and saying, this is who I am. I'm based on a true story. It's messy, Sojo. Okay, I'm fine with that. I made a lot of mistakes. It's okay. I'm fine with that. I don't know if I deserve to be here. I promise you, you do. And we need your story here. This story? Yes. You haven't even heard it yet. And I hope you share it, because we need it. We need every uncommon story in this room that makes us an uncommon fellowship of believers that will do something uncommon together in this great city of Charlotte. Sometimes it's something big. Sometimes it's something small. Sometimes it's something as simple as a piece of pizza. Let me pray for you. Dear Heavenly Father, there's something special about the people in this room, the freedom in this house. God, to the person who walked in here and maybe he's been ashamed and been holding on to their story and said, I'll never tell anybody my mistakes. I'll never tell anybody my shame. I pray that they can remember that a story that's untold never has the chance to help anyone. I pray that today they can begin to embrace what makes them uncommon. Begin to embrace who they are and what you will continue to do through them. All the incredible things that you have planned. And so God, tonight, I pray that you re-engage, reinvigorate, repower the ones that just feel like they have no more hope, and remind them that setting their eyes on you is all they need to focus on to make it to the greatest heights of which they never could imagine. We thank you for what you're doing. We thank you for sending your Son that gave us all that we need through him so that we might have eternal life beside you. And it's in your family of Jesus' name we all say together as one, amen. I love y'all.
Thanks again for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this message. Don't forget to subscribe.
And hey, if you want to find out more about our church or how you can be a part, go to freedomhouse.cc.